I know that you're in the Beltway, but I think the Democratic base feels like there is a disconnect. Like, we hear you, like when you did your 25-hour speech, I was like, go, Cory. I love this. That is amazing. And then there's a photo shoot with you with Benjamin Netanyahu. And I was just like, what in the actual
I'm one of a handful of people that don't take corporate PAC money. I don't understand my Democratic
What
Party.
about APAC money? You take APAC money, don't you?
A minuscule percentage of my resources come from
I read it's like 800,000.
Yeah, but that's a lifetime number of raising tens of millions of dollars. Let me give you the right stat. The majority of my money comes from small dollar contributions. My last report, I think 76% of it came from people that gave $25 or less. Again, we could pick at each other, or we could do what we need to be doing right now, is joining in a chorus of conviction to condemn it. And again, I'm a child of civil rights activists. You think Malcolm X and Martin Luther King agreed on everything? No. But when it came to the fight, they joined together and created a movement that was successful. And that's really what my focus is. And as the only person in the caucus that lives in a low-income black and brown neighborhood below the poverty line, I still remember when some progressives from the suburbs came down to protest me, and they were literally chased away by my neighbors.
Jacobin recently published an article titled "Why Americans Hate the Democratic Party," which sounds dramatic, but the main premise is that despite perceptions that voters don't like the Democrats because of issues pertaining to the culture war, the real reason why people don't like the Democrats is because they just don't deliver. So I'll tell you what I think about this, but first let's see what the article had to say. It starts off by clarifying that no one is happy about Trump right now. His approval rating is dumb, and many people don't like the way he's handling the economy, which is one of the most important issues facing voting Americans. Still, that doesn't necessarily mean that things are looking up for the Democrats. Just because people are disappointed with Trump and maybe even with Republicans, it doesn't mean that the Democrats are doing anything for them. So case in point, a recent CNN SSRS poll from March 2025 found that just 29% of Americans hold a favorable view of the Democratic Party. That is the lowest number since SSRS began asking the question in 2002. The study focused on voters within 4 Rust Belt states: Michigan, Pennsylvania, Ohio, and Wisconsin. It was conducted by the Center for Working Class Politics, the Labor Institute, and Rutgers University. Overall, amongst the targeted group, 70% held a negative view of the Democratic Party. So they tested whether or not the same message around corporate greed, lowering costs, and protecting jobs resonated further with voters if the candidate presenting those identical messages called themselves Democrats or independents. And the result was stark. Candidates described as Democrats performed 10 to 16 points worse in Michigan, Wisconsin, and Ohio than otherwise identical independents delivering the same pitch. Pennsylvania was the lone outlier where this Democratic penalty did not appear. The drag was largest among working class, Latino, and rural/small town respondents, precisely the bloc's Democrats must win to carry the key working class heavy battleground states. So now the question is why? Why did the Dems perform so much worse just at face value than non-Democrats carrying the exact same message? The poll asked participants to answer an open-ended question: when you think about the Democratic Party, what comes to mind? And overall, the results show that participants doubted Democrats' ability to deliver for their constituents, saying that they seemed unable to carry out policies that actually help everyday Americans. One Democratic respondent felt that the party was well-intended but poor in execution. Another believed that the Democratic Party talks a lot but has accomplished little in recent years. A third put it succinctly: some good ideas but very ineffective at enacting them. Many independents voiced similar frustrations, describing Democrats as people who offer lip service but aren't interested in changing the status quo, lamenting that Democrats don't do what they are elected to do, or saying, "I am so disappointed with the Democratic Party and feel they haven't represented their constituents in a long time."
New data came out today from KFF, and that is not Kentucky Fried French fries. KFF could be Kentucky French fries. Nah.
Kaiser Family Foundation.
I know. Orange. Excuse me. Today, new data came out from KFF, the Kaiser Family Foundation, that said that 78% of Americans say Congress should extend the ACA tax credits.
Others cited that the Dems seemed extremely corrupt while pointing the blame at others. They seemed opportunistic and even the party of the rich and fraudulent. It's incredible that that is how they see the Democrats, but maybe, hopefully, they also identify Republicans as such. Moreover, both independents and Republicans were more likely than Democratic respondents to describe the party as out of touch or alienating. A typical independent put it plainly, they are out of touch and have forgotten who they are. Others were even more caustic, calling Democrats completely out of touch a-holes who are focused on the wrong priorities. Wokeness or culture war issues only turned up as an explanation 11% of the time amongst independents and 19% among Republicans. And the Democrats have been hitting the podcast and mainstream circuit pretty hard lately, but everything that has been mentioned in these poll results have been exemplified in these media appearances, talking a big talk but with nothing to back it up. They come across as disingenuous. They come across as though they are hiding things from the public. They come across as though they are desperate to stick to talking points, and then when the interviewers don't let them get away with that, they collapse. Look no further than Democratic Senator Cory Booker's appearance on the I've Had It podcast with Jennifer Welch. And here is California Governor Gavin Newsom squirming on the Higher Learning podcast as soon as APAC comes up.
I will not vote for a candidate that takes $1 from APAC.
It's interesting. It's interesting. I haven't thought about APAC. And it's interesting. You're like the first to bring up APAC in years, which is interesting. Why did I say that? Not relevant to my day-to-day life.
Okay.
Which is just interesting.
Listen.
It's interesting you say that. JPAC perhaps more, but APAC less and less.
Okay. Fair enough.
Which is just interesting.
What's interesting about it?
That it's just interesting.
It is very, very telling that someone who is presumed to inherit the Democratic Party is so out of touch with one of the biggest issues facing this country right now, an issue that unites voters on both sides of the aisle, an issue that arguably cost the Democrats the election in 2024. How have they not even prepared themselves for the possibility of what they would say when that question comes up in interviews? Either they're completely ignorant of the needs and demands and priorities of the American people, which is bad, or they're pretending to be, which is probably worse. They think they can shape the narrative however they want to, but they're not dealing with cult members here. People on the left are far less loyal and sycophantic to their elected officials than MAGA is to Donald Trump. They look terrible doing what they're doing. They're dodging questions and attempting to placate audience members, all while talking about how they need to be more authentic and more personable. One thing I've said about the Democrats for a long time is that I don't need just their shared outrage over things that I'm already outraged about. I need more from them. They are supposed to be the ones with the power to do something about the things that enrage the rest of us. So a tweet isn't going to cut it. We voted them into office because they said that they could and would do something about those things. They begged us for the opportunity to do those things for us. They told us that they were our fighters. They told us that they wanted the job and that they were qualified to do the job. But like where? I'm not seeing it. And I've got to admit, as someone who has always voted Democrat, I have been very, very disappointed with the party throughout the years because they can't really be relied upon to be the fighters or protectors for the people that they represent. How many illegalities has Trump and his administration just been allowed to get away with over the past decade? How many rights did we lose, including during the Biden administration? Why is Trump about to just invade Venezuela? How is he allowed to just unleash the National Guard on American cities and illegally deport American citizens to who knows where? I know that the Dems don't hold a single branch of our government right now, but the Republicans somehow managed to take away my rights to my own body under a Democratic president. And I know that that is not a fair assessment of what really happened. I know that logically, but the optics were not good. And on a personal, emotional level, I'll probably never forgive the Democrats for letting that happen to me and so many others. The fact that the Democrats allowed things to devolve to that point in the first place was exceedingly disappointing. It was devastating. Where were our fighters then, and where are they now? And don't even get me started on Merrick Garland. Let's be real though, I just drew a comparison between the logical side of my brain and the emotional side, which for anyone can often exist in opposition to one another. I have been heartbroken by the Dems before, but that doesn't mean that I see myself voting for any Republican anytime soon. We like to think that logic will and should prevail when it comes to things like voting, but if there's one thing that the left should have learned from the past 10 years, it's that voting is deeply emotional, deeply personal, and sometimes deeply illogical. Is morality and conscience a logical or an emotional factor? I think sometimes that particular line can be blurred, and even if you decide that it is more of an emotional thing, does that make it any less reasonable or valuable? The left has been throwing facts and stats at the right for years in desperate attempts to prove to them that their perceptions are often not reality, but those attempts have proven to be futile. Appealing to emotions sometimes does work better. And what are the emotions that people are feeling right now? I think the prevalent ones across maybe every cross-section of our society right now are feelings of helplessness, hopelessness, fear of the future, fear of the unknown, fear of instability. We have all had our bottom couple of tiers of Maslow's hierarchy of needs completely shaken in some form or other, so who can help us? It makes sense that the same people who resonated with Bernie's message also found comfort in Trump's message back in 2016. Both of those men are fighters, and for all of the things that can and have been said about Donald Trump, the man is making moves. He's making terrible moves, but they're moves nonetheless. All right, that's it for me. If you got anything out of this, please like the video and subscribe to the channel for more. Thanks.